Overgeneralization. One unwanted event or experience leads to the general conclusion that nothing ever goes right. This is what overgeneralization is. It is another thinking pattern or way of thinking that is an unhealthy way of thinking. Examples: a low grade in school, or a rejection from a love interest, or criticism at work can be generalized into feelings of defeat and failure. And since all other cases will be the same, you lose motivation. So overgeneralization. So you're basically saying you're taking, well, I just read it, one thing and one bad thing that happened or a bad experience, and then you're turning it into, well, it's always going to be that way. Or this is just the way it is. The bad things always happen to me, or, whatever. And this is something that a lot of people with anxiety tend to do. So what do we do with our anxiety? These are examples for me. I'm using my own personal examples. So, for instance, I had, when I first had my very first panic attack, it happened like 15 minutes after I had eaten popcorn. So I was pregnant and every time I've ever been pregnant, I used to crave popcorn. I don't know why. Maybe not every time, but maybe at least 3 out of the 6 times. But I used to just eat popcorn. I used to get popcorn. I used to just eat it all the time. Anyway, I had been eating popcorn and I went to take a nap. And when I got up, of course, y'all know the story if y'all have listened to any of my old videos. I, went into a crazy panic attack and all that stuff happened. I went to the hospital, all this stuff happened. Well, since that day, it took me, I want to say it was like a decade. I'm not even kidding, that I did not eat popcorn. I couldn't eat popcorn, at all. I generalized it as anytime I ate any kind of popcorn, I didn't eat popcorn at all. No, nothing from the box, nothing that people gave me, popcorn balls, whatever. I did not eat popcorn for nothing. Because I swore I was gonna have a panic attack, if I did. That's just a crazy out of the box example of overgeneralization. But it can also be anything. It could be that, every time I go outside, I have anxiety. No. That's another thing that actually leads to agoraphobia, right? Which is another form of anxiety, which I have dealt with as before in my life as well. And some of you have too. Some of you are dealing with it now. And so think about it like that. That's overgeneralization, because in all reality, just because you leave your house doesn't mean you're going to have an anxiety attack. A panic attack isn't going to ensue because of that. Some people might generalize it as, well, every time I get into a car, I'm going to have an anxiety attack. Every time I go to work, whatever. No matter where I work, no one understands me. These are all examples of overgeneralization. So these are things that are not good. These are things that you don't want to get into the habit of doing. You don't want this thought pattern to become a habit, because this is something that will get in the way of your life all the way around. So what you need to do is be a little more logical, a little more realistic when it comes to these things. So I'm going to give you my example. I'm going to use myself. So my example I gave you dealing with the popcorn, right? That's a really crazy example, but I'll use another example as well later in a minute. But, in all reality, popcorn did not cause my anxiety to come out of nowhere. Anxiety comes from within us. It comes within you. So in all reality, it wasn't the popcorn. My brain decided to try to fix a problem, quote unquote, and it was trying to figure out what caused it. Because when it comes to anxiety, you tend to want to know, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? What ifs, the whys, right? And so you're like, well, why did that happen? And you try to figure out an answer. You have to give yourself an answer. So my answer at the time was, well, popcorn, And in all reality, that wasn't what it was. It was my environment, to be honest, and how I was responding to my environment. And I just associated it with the popcorn. Now, let me use another example. Let's do you're going to go into a panic attack every time you get into a car. So let's say you did have once or twice where when you were in a car, you went into a panic or went into, anxiety or panic attack. So then you have this fear, and your brain again is trying to figure out why, right? And so you associate it with, well, because I was in a moving vehicle. In all reality, that's not what it was, as I explained before. Now, if you go into like just regular life patterns, I guess, and when you go into overgeneralization, you could say, well, it's your brain just trying to figure out what happened and associates it with these things. If you're depressed, if you're sad, and you're like, well, why am I sad? Why am I depressed? Or why am I always, whatever. It's those words again that I told you in the last video, do not use. You're not supposed to use always, never, those for sure words, don't use those. But that's the same thing. Like you go in and you're going to say, well, this always happens to me. Or when it comes to a love interest, right? Or love life, a lot of people try to say, well, I never have good relationships. There's that word again, never, right? I never have good relationships. I always end up scaring people away. Whatever. So that's overgeneralization. So in a way, it puts you in a spot where you're never going to be motivated to do anything. You're never going to be motivated to actually go and talk to anyone. You're never going to be motivated to go and try to drive a car again or get into the car because, well, it's going to happen anyway, right? That's your mindset. Me, for almost 10 years, I couldn't eat popcorn. I was like, well, I'm going to have anxiety. I can't enjoy popcorn. I couldn't go to the movies and enjoy popcorn. I couldn't do anything with popcorn. And so, and eventually I went ahead and forced myself to try it. I was like, you know what? I really want some popcorn. And I did it. And I ate it and I was fine. I didn't go into a panic attack. I started to at the beginning because my mind was taking me there, not the popcorn, and the same thing happened with my car situation. I had an issue where I couldn't drive by myself. I couldn't get into the car and go anywhere by myself. I would freak out. So another overgeneralization. I would always think, oh, I'm going to have a panic attack as soon as I go in here. And another one that I do now that I realized I do to this day is the theater. So every time I go to the theater, this is something that I tell myself, and I realize this is what I'm doing, so I've stopped it recently. But I was telling myself, well, you're going to have anxiety. You're going to go into a panic attack when you go in there. But it's going to go away and you're going to be okay and you're going to make it through the movie just fine. That's what I've been telling myself in the back of my mind over and over and over. So every time I go, guess what happens? That exact thing that I just said happens. So that was totally off subject. But regardless, I was just trying to throw something out there, the overgeneralization thing. So just realize, be logical about it, about everything when you're looking at things like, well, I'm never going to find a job or a good job because every time I do, something bad happens. Well, and then you're not going to be motivated to look for another job or to go better. It ain't going to happen because you have that thinking pattern, that habit of, well, I'm of that, the overgeneralization. So anyway, the next one's coming soon, like probably tomorrow. But anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Hope that helps some of you. Love you guys. Remember, you're not alone. Bye.